It is needless to say that both Aguero and Haaland have been terrific for Manchester City. But who has been the greater? Aguero came to Manchester City in the 2011-12 season, scoring 23 goals and 8 assists in the Premier League alone. He would stay at Manchester City until the 2021 season, finally making his leave after winning his 5th Premier League title. During his time at Manchester City, Aguero won the Golden Boot once in 2015 after scoring 26 goals and providing 8 assists. Aguero is the 5th top scorer in Premier League history, scoring a total of 184 times in 275 appearances. Impressive figures to boast of. More records that Aguero can claim is being Manchester City's all-time top scorer, being the shared most successful player in the Carabao Cup history with 6 victories, and the most prolific foreigner in Premier League. Haaland, for contrast, is back-to-back Golden Boot winner. Haaland has scored 63 goals in 66 Premier League appearances, won the European Golden Shoe on his Man City debut season, was a Champions League top scorer in his debut season, won 2 Premier League trophies, an FA Cup and the Champions League in only 2 seasons, one of which disturbed by injury. Haaland has already scored 1/3 of the Premier League goals Aguero has. For this reason, the argument is rarely output in goals. Aguero's best scoring Premier League season was his 26 goals in 2014-15. Meanwhile, Haaland scored 27 Premier League goals in a poor season across 31 appearances. If Aguero is superior to Haaland, goals cannot be the reason why. So for this video, I will take a look at every metric to measure a player's effectiveness for a club, and I will weigh Haaland against Aguero to determine objectively which of the two is superior. Winning trophies does not signify a player's ability or skill, nor does shared trophy count mean one player is superior to another, but winning trophies can create legends and legacies. As such, this will be the first metric on which I will compare the players. The metric is broken down into 3 categories: European, or otherwise better said, Champions League glory, domestic success, and finally individual honours. For the first category, Haaland is obviously superior. In Aguero's 64 Champions League appearances for Manchester City, he scored 36 goals and provided 8 assists. In only 20 appearances for Manchester City, Haaland has already netted 18 goals and provided 2 assists, including pivotal games such as against Bayern München. Haaland has also lifted the trophy for Manchester City, whereas Aguero never achieved this in his entire career. Haaland wins this one. Domestic success can be left for debate. Haaland has won 2 league titles with Manchester City and an FA Cup in only 2 seasons. Meanwhile, Aguero won 12 major honours in 10 seasons for Manchester City. Aguero also had the Aguero moment, was part of the Centurions team, part of the domestic treble, and had been at Manchester City for her rise to dominance. Meanwhile, Haaland was crucial in completing the 4-peat, but lacks the level of iconic moments due to not having been at City for as long. And Haaland most certainly does not beat Aguero in most iconic moments. For this reason, I give Aguero to win in domestic success. Individual honours would honestly make for a good joke of a debate. Haaland won back-to-back Golden Boots, won the Golden Shoe, won the PFA Player of the Season award, and won the UEFA Best Player in Europe award. Meanwhile, Aguero won the Golden Boot once. There is no debate to be had in Haaland's victory in this category. That leaves Haaland with a 2-1 advantage over Aguero in the first metric. So for the superior winner between the two, I will crown Erling Haaland. The second metric is skills, or maybe better said, ability. What are the abilities of both players? Where do they excel at? To what degree? And who is ultimately the superior footballer? For this reason, I have broken this metric down into multiple categories again. Goal involvements, playmaking, which is itself divided into 2 subcategories, passing and dribbling, holder play, off-the-ball involvement, defensive third grade, the dark arts, and lastly, leadership. I will start with the last category for this, as I wish to explain why it is wholly pointless. Aguero and Haaland both provided leadership attributes to their teams, but neither were themselves leaders. While in moments they have provided direction, they are not directors. While a duck in the middle of the pack may direct those behind oneself, the duck ultimately only follows those ahead of him. Providing leadership in isolated moments does not make a leader, and thus neither Aguero nor Haaland qualify for this as a whole. I only included it within the video as to provide an argument why it is not in my video at all, as I have seen people on both sides of the argument accurately point out that their less favourite player was not a leader, whilst totally neglecting that their favourite is also not a leader. Thus we can move on to goal involvement instead. Now, this might be controversial to some, as many could see it disingenuous to put assists and goals together. After all, whilst Haaland might be the superior goal scorer, the premise of the argument for Aguero relies on Aguero being the superior all-round player. Yet I promise you, the fact that assists and goals were grouped together only makes this fairer on Aguero. Haaland was always going to win the category for goals, but the category for assists is not so clear-cut. One might assume that Aguero has the better numbers, but he doesn't. In fact, if you look at both Haaland and Aguero's first 64 Premier League appearances for Manchester City, Haaland provided 13 assists as opposed to Aguero's 10. Aguero's best assisting season for Manchester City was in 2014-15, when he provided 8 assists. Meanwhile, Haaland provided the same amount of assists in the 22-23 season, and could continue to move the bar, including the Champions League or the Cups. Yet Haaland emerges at least on par with Aguero, and at most beyond him. For this reason, the goal involvement category remains only a single category, and Haaland is the ultimate victor. The next category is playmaking, which, as said earlier, is split into 2 different subcategories. This is actually not as straightforward as it might seem either. In his first season at Manchester City, Haaland was noted to be poor in passing and technical ability. The myth that this is how Haaland has been at Manchester City for the entirety of his career has persisted thus far, whilst it is no more true than 1 + 1 is 3. In Haaland's second season, his passing had been amongst Manchester City's best and most consistent, especially before his injury. Haaland might not have been involved in build-up much, but when he was involved, he was consistently able. With that said, I am not so delusional to say that Haaland has surpassed Aguero in this metric either. I simply wish to expand upon the fact that Haaland had significantly improved in both dribbling and passing since he arrived at Manchester City, although Aguero is still, indisputably, the superior in this category. Hold-up play is more difficult of a category to discuss. It may be obvious that Haaland is more physical and has an easier time holding on to the ball, but that is not all that hold-up play entails. It means the ability to slow a game down, to get a ball to a teammate safely, and to take tension out of a game if your team is in need of a rest. Similarly, it means the ability to speed up play and transition into a counter-attack if possible. It might seem like a cop-out answer to some, but having watched both players their entire careers at Manchester City, I am not convinced that one is superior to the other in this skill set. Haaland might hold on to the ball better and longer, but Aguero was better in transitioning play. Yet ultimately, both were effective in what their respective managers asked of them to do. Therefore, I will call this category a draw. It is needless to say that both Erling Haaland and Aguero were great off the ball, but Haaland's positioning is that of a pure poacher, an instinct akin to Miroslav Klose, the inherent ability to be in the right place at the right time. It is not luck, it is a rare skill that few footballers have, to understand the phase of play and know where to stand to receive the ball. Furthermore, Haaland's shared gravity draws 2 or sometimes 3 defenders to himself at all times, allowing so much room in midfield for Manchester City that almost all big teams have resorted to playing low blocks. Haaland's gravity, positioning and awareness of the flow of the game is simply superior to Aguero's. Haaland wins this category. Your first line of defense is ultimately the striker who does the pressing. Both Haaland and Aguero have been effective at this, but it is undeniable that Haaland has a greater work rate and is more intimidating to goalkeepers when he presses them high up the pitch. Equally, Haaland tracks back farther, often going all the way back to his own box to clear crosses. Haaland's defensive work rate is superior. The dark arts of football, as they are often called, are becoming more and more relevant as the new era of the game approaches. Whilst it would not be unfair to say that Haaland is more effective at wasting time than Aguero, it would be unfair to say that Aguero was asked to do so. Football was different when Aguero played, especially near the start of his career. The dark arts had always existed, but with the introduction of VAR, they have become something so different from what they used to be, and the modern focus on organized time wasting has become so much more prevalent that one could hardly consider it a fair comparison for either party. As such, I will drop this category entirely. That leaves a final score of 3.5 to Haaland and 1.5 to Aguero. The half points for the earlier awarded draw. But this does not tell the entire truth. Simply having more skills does not mean being better. The skills that Aguero is superior at are crucial in football, and people could argue that Aguero is an overall more skilled footballer than Haaland. The truth is, Haaland has only spent 2 seasons at Manchester City. This makes comparing him to Aguero, who had 10 seasons at City, difficult. Therefore, I would look at their first 2 seasons to ultimately award this category. While Aguero had the 93-20 moment and was terrific in his first 2 seasons at Manchester City, Haaland carried a terrible Manchester City team in the first half of both seasons. People tend to remember the back end of a season more than the start of it, but this is merely recency bias. The truth is, without Haaland, Manchester City is not in a title race in both 2023 and 2024. Without Haaland, there is no treble, there is no 2-1 Dortmund, there is no 4-peat. And I find it very difficult to imagine that Aguero could have done what Haaland did. For that reason, I give this metric to Erling Haaland. The eye test is very straightforward. Who looks better as a footballer? This obviously comes down to opinion. Well, let's not get ourselves. How good a drawing is comes down to opinion too. But I'll be very impressed if you find me someone who prefers the drawing on the left to the drawing on the right. Just because something comes down to opinion does not mean that there is no correct opinion, as a correct opinion would entail an opinion rooted in fact rather than rooted in fantasy. Most people would consider Aguero the more entertaining footballer to watch. It isn't rocket science. I believe that Haaland has become more entertaining the longer he has been at Manchester City, with the exclusion of the period after his injury. I still do not find him as entertaining to watch as Aguero. The eye test goes to Aguero. The final metric for who is superior is iconism. Who was the more iconic Manchester City striker? Well, it is obviously Aguero. It is easy to point to the Aguero moment and leave it at that, without further thought. And so, that is exactly what I'll do. Bye.
Balotelli, Aguero!
Okay, but seriously now. Haaland has not been at Manchester City for nearly as long as Aguero. And even if we compare the first 2 seasons to each other, Aguero was still more iconic. Haaland has provided moments, such as both his goals against Arsenal, such as his goal against Dortmund, his goals against Bayern München, his 5 goals against Leipzig, and still it does not come to Aguero's level. For this reason, I give the final metric to Aguero, making it 2-2. Haaland and Aguero finished tied, and that is a perfect expression of my opinion on them. For me, they are equally good at this point in time when I recorded this video. I grew up watching Aguero score crucial goals for Manchester City. Even if I logically understand that Haaland is the superior striker, I cannot give him the throne when he has only been here for 2 seasons. Similarly, I cannot lie to you and say I believe Aguero is the better player. Aguero at 22 was nowhere near Haaland at the same age. Yet Haaland has not dethroned Aguero's goals, iconism and loyalty. Yet. Hello, welcome to my channel and thank you for sticking along to the end of this video. As you can see, it might be a bit of a cop-out of an answer to say that neither is better than the other. But if you want my honest opinion, Haaland is going to surpass Sergio Aguero by simply every metric. It is virtually impossible for Aguero to hold on to what he has. Erling Haaland is a superstar, he is a phenomenon. Does he have the same level of entertainment value as Aguero does? No. But I find Aguero more entertaining to watch. Heck, I find Marcelo more entertaining to watch than Cristiano Ronaldo at his prime. That doesn't make Marcelo the better footballer though. I think Cesc Fabregas is one of the most entertaining footballers I have ever watched. I do not think Cesc Fabregas is better than Kevin De Bruyne. So, this entire thing that people often like to point at who is more entertaining to watch, that is kind of irrelevant to how good a footballer is. But I get why people bring it up. And furthermore, I think I'll end the video on that. I love both of these players, right? I love them both. They have been iconic in their own right. But it is simply impossible for me to say that Aguero, who I grew up watching, is not Manchester City's best striker because some other guy came in and had 2 seasons. If Haaland left now, he would not have done for Manchester City what Aguero did for us. Because Aguero brought us to being a top club. He scored that Aguero goal. He has done so much for us. So, I think that's where I'll leave the video. Haaland hasn't done what Aguero has done yet. But I'm damn well sure that at some point in time he will surpass Aguero. And with that said, thank you guys for watching to the end. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you are new here, it helps out a ton. Go check out some of my older content too. I've got a lot of videos now. I think I'm getting nearly to 200 videos, so go check them out and tell me down in the comments who you think is superior. Feel free to disagree, but do be nice to each other. I don't want to see people using racial slurs. There's been quite a few racial slurs in my comments recently, so I've had to remove that. Please don't use racial slurs, like please grow up. And with that said, thank you for watching to the end, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.